Hello, it's Blockchain here coming at you with another technical analysis update. For those of you just tuning in, I'm primarily an Elliott Wave trader using other areas of Confluence and other technical analysis to really complement my price analysis. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the charts. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're at in the world. It's Blockchain coming at you with another Bitcoin and ETH update. Before I dive into the charts, I do want to cover a couple things on the site as I am literally working on this thing every single day. I'm actually creating a special little section for members only. So make sure whenever you do visit the site, log on, create a little profile. There's going to be a lot of cool things in a members only area that you'll be able to have access to. And there's a lot of cool things coming for this particular guy. And also just want to highlight, if this is your first time tuning in, make sure you visit the site and also jump over here where it says get my number one trading strategy for free, as I am sharing that with my members as well. Actually email you a video walkthrough of my number one trading strategy that is consistent, profitable, reliable, applicable in any market. So just click on the little get in touch. I'll fill out a little bit of info so I know where to send it to you, and I'll send you a direct link for the video walkthrough. And then also I do want to highlight an awesome new partnership that I have with a particular Discord that I'll kind of cover through a few specifics here. But it is actually only $25 a month or $147 a year, which is actually half price versus the monthly. And prices will be going up as we're going to be making some adjustments on the particular Discord as well. So make sure you jump over and check it out. There is also going to be, I'll actually walk through a couple things right now just so you kind of see what's in there, what to expect. And then also, you guys may be familiar with Schuyler. He is the crypto hippo. He actually has a special launch price of his Elliott Wave Masterclass. That's actually something that I have I've gone through myself, and Elliott Wave, personally, it has kind of been the missing component. As again, for my returning visitors, I'm primarily an Elliott Wave trader, and that has been a kind of the missing puzzle piece for me. Also preferred vendors, so if you are just starting out, these are vendors that I do actually use, so feel free to take a look at these guys. You can click here, it'll take you directly to these sites and you can sign up, create an account, but these are all ones that I've directly used before in the past. And then of course, if you want to check out some testimonials, a lot of it from the Discord or the videos, that's all right down here as well. And of course, you're already on my YouTube. So let's actually go ahead and let's jump over to the Discord real quick. I just want to highlight a couple things, just because that is going to be something that is pretty awesome and something that we can do a lot of awesome updates to and give thoughts on the markets a lot quicker than what we can anywhere else. So we do have new members coming in all the time, but there's a lot of information that's within here, and specifically right here under the elite traders, these are really, I guess, very experienced traders in a lot of different areas with different trading styles. A couple things I want to highlight from myself where I've been able to give some updates. Like I said, I do normally analyze ETH and Bitcoin together, and you can really see that, the other day I was really looking at ETH and posting some targets, and right here, this is what I was looking for how ETH to play out. Back when right when we broke out of the channel and broke the major resistance of 200, looking at the wave structure, I was looking for a third wave to go up to 211 with a little bit of a pullback, and then ultimately 223 was my end target. And that was on the 28th is when I was looking at that. Gave regular updates, still looking through. Hit the third wave target. And again, other update was, I was able to talk about it throughout the group, but Right here, I was looking at 123. I think ultimately we hit 127 at the ultimate peak up there. And I told him, I'm taking profits and I'm laddering shorts. And, woke up this morning and sure enough, nice juicy move to the downside. So this wave, played out perfectly to the T. And this was, 2 days in advance of where I was looking for this thing to ultimately end. But not just myself, but there's other technical analysis as well. The Crypto Hippo, he is the master at Elliott Wave, in my opinion. He does all kinds of updates as well. You can see a lot of different counts and moves, and it gives regular updates on a lot of different coins. I also have Dragonfly, again, another Elliott Wave trader. And then Odie's also more of a technical analysis guy. And Upland, same thing. He does a lot of technical analysis with Gantt charts as well. That's something that I have been getting into, and it's something I'll cover a couple things on the video. And also, of course, just for questions and feedback, where the group can post different questions or thoughts on what Elliott Wave or just some technical analysis questions, and everyone's here to answer. So it's a pretty awesome, great community to be a part of, and that is, in my opinion, $25 for the value that's within here between the signals, the signals discussion, the overall chat. We also have traditional markets that we cover for a lot of different things as well. So if you guys have the opportunity, I highly recommend jumping over there and checking it out. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the charts. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with ETH and really dive into ultimately, we were last video, we were at that $200 resistance mark, and it was getting pretty top heavy. And, in my opinion, I was looking for a move downside. As we're right here at some pretty major resistance, and I did take a short. Ultimately did close it out at about 195 and did re-enter along. I covered all that in the Discord. Was able to catch the ride up to the top side for that 223 mark is where I did exit, and then stacked a few shorts within there. Still in a short position now, as it has been moving pretty decently to the downside. And on the shorter term targets, I'll look at a couple of those with you once we get there. But on the daily, for what I'm looking at, a couple different things. So one, it is pretty high up to be a wave 4. So I'm looking at this more of a completed impulsive wave to the downside. But the question remains is, where was it finished? Did we get a truncated fifth here? I can actually go ahead and draw that out real quick. Or we would have a 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5 here. Or was this the fourth coming back up and then a truncated fifth wave right here? I'll change the color so you can see a little bit better. So that's kind of the question that we're looking at right now from an ETH and Bitcoin, honestly, just because that changes a lot of different things if it ends here, or if it ends here. That move does make a big difference. So if it ends here, for what I'm looking at, even on ETH in general, I'm still finding a hard time to make this overall an impulsive move. It isn't exactly clear, kind of choppy and corrected. But from the extensions from where we are now, we are right at the 1.618, and that's from the low to this move up 152, and then back down. So that would be measuring that the fifth wave is complete here. So I'd be looking at this as a W, X, Y, X, and then up for a Z. So a corrective move is what I'd be looking for, just because this to me is very three wave. Again, this is 3 waves for an ABC. We have a 3-wave move in here. Right here, we have up, down, and back up for another ABC. Same thing, 3-wave move. So it's whole thing on ETH to me, it looks very 3-wavy, meaning that really this would have to be the top if that's what it is. It's as a WXYXC. It cannot really go any higher than that. But if it does, then obviously that means that this is something else other than a WXYXC. It can be something different. It can be it'd have to be something a little bit more impulsive. So if the count is wrong, it would have to be more of a impulsive wave, in which it would have to start right here to be a 5-wave move. So be a 1, 2, and then this would be a 1, 2, 3. Could be coming back down for the fourth, and then up again for a fifth, and then, whoops, back down for the fourth, and up again for a fifth. But if that's the case, then wave 1 would have to start right here. Sorry, guys. So wave 1 would have to start right there. So obviously that would change things up, and from an extension standpoint, I keep this the same. So to put us just over the 1.618, which it can do, it's if it's going to be overextended, it can go past it a little bit if we had an overextended wave in there, and we come back down for the fourth, and then back up again for the fifth, in which we would be looking at potentially 260-ish roughly on ETH with those extensions. But again, kind of all depends on exactly where was this finished out, and I'm still trying to make a case for this. I could make a case for this to be a wave 1 potentially, for an impulsive wave, but right here is what I'm having a hard time with. Is right here, this looks very 3-wave, to me, and then I can make an impulsive move out of this leg here. We can look at a couple different time frames from it, but ultimately, that is what I'm looking at. We'll pull a fib real quick for where we're at on this guy. So this would be for the wave 1 inside of wave 3. And that'd put us pretty close to where we're at, but again, we need 5 waves inside of a wave 3, so that's kind of the confusion. So this can't be a wave 3 inside of the wave 3, because wave 3 needs to have 5 waves in it. So in order to really label it out, it'd have to be a 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5, but we can't do that because wave 3 can't be the smallest wave, and that would invalidate this being impulsive, because that would make 3 the smallest wave in there. So that's my really biggest issue right here on ETH, is to make that, from making this an impulse standpoint. That's what I'm having a hard time getting past. So let's go ahead and just dive into a little bit of a smaller time frame. And for what I'm looking at, from an overall move, again, I look for a lot of confluence and different areas of different technical analysis. So, right here was a pretty heavy resistance. It kind of goes back to here where it had resistance. Here was flipped to, resistance and support when we kind of popped back up, and then we just blasted right through it on the big move down. But this is also the 786. So if this were to be a 3-wave move, ETH likes the 786. So right here, we did tag the 786. We're also at the 1.618, and also the 1.618 from that move here within. And then I'll go ahead and zoom in. But I already covered that this from right here would be the 1.618 for the W and X for that first part. But we're also at the 1.618 from this move here. So this ABC for what I'm looking at. Again, I'm looking at this as a 3-wave move, come back up, and again, this is the highest extension they can go for a 3-wave move. If it goes past the 1.618, then generally it's something more impulsive, and it tends to get invalidated. So again, I pulled the pivots right here from 0 to A to B, and that put us right at the 1.618 as well. So it's, again, pretty interesting, from areas of confluence to expect a rejection here. So that's what I was talking about in our Discord group last night. Still in the short, haven't exited. It looks to be coming down in a little bit more of a 5-wave move fashion. So I am looking for potentially, if we do get this other leg down, come back down, retest 195. I was expecting to come back down, retest 200, and that is something that I talked about last night as well in the Discord. Sure enough, came back down, retested 200, 20 to be exact. Not sure why my music is playing. Let me get out of there. All right, sorry guys. Get back in there. Came back to tested 202 to be exact, and then right back up. And so I'm expecting this to have potential one more leg down, making a 5-wave move at about 195. So we will see what that ultimately plays out to. We can look at a couple of different things to give us an idea. RSI, we did pop back up, tried to get out of the bearish control zone. We're still kind of hovering it in right here on the 15-minute, and getting a little bit of some pressure under the EMAs on the RSI as well, and even on the CVI index. You can see how wave 4 normally has a pretty high retracement back up into a little bit more of the bullish zone, or the overbought zone, I guess you can say, a little bit more on the CBI index, and then right back down. So that's definitely something that we like to see in a wave 4, where the RSI resets, the CBI resets, and then we can ultimately have another move back to the downside. We'll also normally see on a wave 4, we won't get right back above the slower moving EMA. We kind of bounce around under it and then ultimately back down. So that is what I'm looking for. That's something that I'm paying attention to. And remember, if this is a 5-wave move, if it starts with 5, it needs to end with 5. So we can kind of project out some potential future targets for where this thing could go, depending on what it is. I'll take it from the top. Let's say it does come back down to 195-ish. And then depending on where it does come back up to retrace to, that's ultimately what will give us a larger target. ETH, like I said, does love the 786. So we can plan to probably come back, test the 618. As high as the 786, back up to 220, depending on what kind of support we find. But let's call the 618 just because that's a pretty common fib retracement level. And if it does end up being a wave 1, it would look something like this for a larger move to the downside. Or this would be the wave 1, up for the 2, 1.618 for the 3, and then right back down to 144 roughly is where we would be looking at. And if it is potentially just an ABC, which would end up being a zigzag, but would still need to end with a 5-wave move, we could look at a couple different areas. For an ABC, again, we would just watch the wave structure and how it plays out. So that would be our A, up for the B. And then really kind of anywhere between the 618, which would have us double bottom, all the way down to the 1.618 for a wave 3. We have this entire zone right here that we can play with. Generally, if it's a zigzag, we'll see it come back down to the 1-to-1, which is roughly 183. But again, this is pretty far out. We don't know for sure if we're going to get this other extension down, because this could also just be a 3-wave move. But I am looking for that one more move to the downside, as this whole move has been pretty aggressive coming down. So that's my thoughts on ETH, guys. Again, if you like my content, if you like my technical analysis, smash the likes, ring that little bell for the subscribe. Check out my website. I hope to see you guys in the Discord, and I will talk to you guys later. Alright guys, let's dive into some good old Bitcoin here. So looking at the daily, had a pretty massive breakout, from this area of resistance here around the 7,800, 7,900 is, really kind of where we were banging our heads against. And we did actually just bust through it, with some power, which is nice to see whenever there is a breakout, that there was a lot of momentum behind it. So you can kind of see we were at a pretty heavy point. I talked about in the last video where we were about 7,800. So right here, right here was fine. So as support till we broke right through it. Even coming back here, we found support here. It was resistance, resistance. Even going back even further, same thing. A lot of support right here. So 7,800, really played a big role throughout the entire move down here for Bitcoin. So it's really nice to see it come back and just break through with some power. And that's what I was talking about. If we did break through, that's how we would have to do it, and that's exactly what we did. So where we are currently is looking at this move. There's a couple different counts I can go through potentially with Bitcoin here, and then overall in this entire move down is also it's going to depend what that looks like as well. So it's either going to be a WXY for a move down, where this potentially can make an impulsive count. I'll go through that with you guys, or this is going to be a three-wave move again, or more of a corrective move, just because as of the moment, with all the corrections and the choppiness that's in it, it does look pretty three-wave, and it'd be something like this here. And that would make this a WXYXZ, meaning that we would need to come back again down to the downside, complete this overall correction coming down, and then potentially blast off and go from there. So let's dive into a little bit of some details here for what it is exactly that I am looking at. And kind of same thing when it comes with Bitcoin here, where this potentially, it's still, or when I covered ETH, this potentially could be a three-wave move. And if this is a WXYXZ, this would have to be a three-wave. And there is an opportunity and potential for it to be a three-wave. However, we do know this very last leg is going to be impulsive. So whether it was more of an ABC or an impulsive wave, it depends on right here on which one ends, whether if this is going to be the end of the fifth wave here, or if we had a extended third, came up for the fourth, and then a truncated fifth right here. So that is what it is going to ultimately depend on to really help give some clarity onto this particular account. So for what I'm looking at, again, if we had the truncated fifth, meaning that the start of this whole move up would have been on this wave here. So pulling the extensions, from here back up to the top on this particular guy, and then it would end up being, oops, sorry guys, again, depending on the count, what it could potentially be would be off of, I end up being this guy. Again, we're looking at the three-wave move. So if this is going to be more of a corrective move, meaning that it started here, whoops, I'm sorry, three-wave would have been starting here. So this one, it would have been more for the impulsive count. So being that on a smaller time frame, this would have been wave 1, 2, and then same thing where this would have been a 5-wave, come back down, and then we have another 5-wave move here. We need to come back down and then up again for a third, meaning that we're not quite done yet, and then up for the fifth, which would put us roughly around 11,570 roughly is where that would be. And that just means that we wouldn't be, we're not done yet for this third leg, because in an impulsive wave we do need to have 5 waves within. So we can make 5 waves out of this guy, we can make 5 waves out of this guy, but we did see a pretty big rejection here on the daily. So it is going to be interesting to see how this closes out here on the daily, because that will, to me, is going to give a little bit more insight on this potential move up. Again, there's some things that I don't like in this particular one, as similar to what ETH is, just because it does look a little choppy. It does look pretty corrective, and yeah, it is hard for me to make a 5-wave move out of, but it's potential. The potential is there when we had this breakout, because 3-wave we do have. It's usually the most powerful. It's normally the most straight up out of the waves. So there is potential there that breakout did give a little bit of hope, I think, for the bulls to potentially turn this into an impulsive wave. It might be a little bit messy. But it potentially can happen. So that is one count for a bull count, meaning that we're not quite done. We need another leg up to roughly around 10,000. Come back down for a fourth wave, and then blast off again for a fifth, putting us back up into that 11,000, 11,570-ish range for the fifth wave. Now, the other count, which is one that I have been leaning towards, is the corrective count, meaning that we start our count down here, make this a W, X, Y, X, Z. Actually, be that one there. And then that's the one where we change our fib levels on. And we did break through a one-to-one extension on this one here. So right now, that is the way that I'm leaning, just because we'd have a three-wave move here. We have our three-wave here. This is debatable to be a three-wave move versus an impulsive move, depending on how it started down here on the smaller time frame. Three-wave here, and then if, again, kind of goes back to where we counted it, is this would have been a wave 1, 2, 3, 4, and then extended fifth to make this part of a third wave, or this was more of a complex correction as a W, X, Y, X, Z, or a W, X, Y within this correction here on the smaller time frame to move this up, getting a little bit past the one-to-one extension. From the Discord, I was talking about ETH coming up and testing the 9250 region. We did, we went past that. Looks like it's 9450. So ETH has been, the other day was quite bullish, and it was pumping pretty hard. So interested to see what this rejection turns out and how it plays out through the rest of the day today. And because I think that'll help give us some insight on potential what we're dealing with. But I am still leaning on this being a little bit more of a corrective count, and ultimately, again, putting us more down back towards the downside. Now, I don't know if at this point, if with as high as we've gone up, if we'll be coming back in saying a lower low. I think that's kind of off the table in my opinion, but I do see us coming back down, potentially doing a one-to-one extension ish, 618 extension, which would fall in between, really the 6,000 range, double bottom, 4,500 ish, somewhere in there. Whenever we do retrace, potentially just come back, we can test this trend line again and then ultimately take off. So whole move, in my opinion, still does look corrective. There's been some, pretty big bullishness in regards to Bitcoin and kind of crypto in general. I think a big part of it is because of the halving that is happening coming up. I believe that is actually on the 12th. Yep, May 12th is where it's at right now. Looking at the Gann chart, I did have today, based on the rules of vibration, today being a point of reversal. Now that's what these lines are. There's normally pivots in regards to price. It's normally when we see some kind of price reversal or a temporary reversal before we continue the trend. So I do have that out here today. So far, it does look to be playing out, as we did see a rejection back through, getting us back below this trend line. Looks like we are testing it again. So we'll be interested to see again how does this play out today, tomorrow, really over these next couple of days. But with a rejection here, you kind of see we've really kind of been bounced around this entire channel here. But with rejection here, we come back down. We'd probably come back down, retest 8,300 somewhere along this trend line here, and really kind of go from there. So it is what I am looking at potentially. Okay. So we'll go ahead and look at a couple of different things in a smaller time frame for a 4-hour. Let's get over to Bitcoin here, as it already did cover ETH. You can kind of see smaller time frame. We were looking at a couple of different things from a corrective standpoint. You can see the wave structures a little bit more, and again, it does look very three-wavy from what I was looking at before. Even here, this potentially could be an ABC coming up. that guy, to help create this as the WXY XZ. Again, this would have been the WXY correction here. Is there was a little bit more of a three-wave action, so we could have a WXY within that wave coming back up for the Z wave. Again, this in the three wave, and there is a case to where this we would have had to be an overextended fifth wave in order to make that happen. And lastly, we'll dive onto the 15-minute here. See a little bit more clarity. Again, looks like it was a little bit of a higher extension. Kind of pulling some fibs. We did go past the 1.618 a little bit, not a ton, but that's kind of where I was looking at that 9250 area for a test before ultimately moving back here to the downside. And we did again see a pretty good rejection on that cap. And what I was looking for before on ETH potentially would have been a 5-wave move down, which it does seem a little bit clearer actually on Bitcoin for a 5-wave move down versus ETH. Because if we pull the extension, this could have been, I would have been a 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5. So I didn't really see that first initial drop on ETH. But if this was, we count that as the 5-wave move down. Again, what starts with 5, it does need to end with 5. So I come 1, 2, 3. It's the 1.618 for a third wave. And then this would have been an overextended fifth wave on that move down. And then this would have been, this will be our ABC correction to give us another 5-wave move down. And then we kind of project where we could potentially come up to based on the fib retracement. So we could potentially come up here to the 1.618 for the C wave or the 0.5. And if that is the case, let's go with the 0.618. We can see it generally look for a 1-to-1 extension, so about 8,200 to 7,600 depending on what we're looking at from a wave structure down. So I'd look for this potentially pump back up to 9,000, 9,100. We know within somewhere in that ballpark. Again, C wave, little 5-wave move here, but ultimately we need to connect to another 5-wave move to the downside to complete this 5-wave structure. So that is what I am looking for in the short term. And I will actually just go ahead and pull this up real quick. I'd like to see what I'm at from the Gann analysis. Just because the trend lines do play a pretty big role from what I've seen on the Gann chart. Again, I want to look for areas of confluence. So let's see. So we can look at an 82, 76. Kind of flip back over. So where is this line here? Right around 8,000, 7,900. Would really kind of seem to be our next major trend line on our continued move down. But potentially we can double top, which would have been the 0.5 right here off of the C wave, and get our continued move down, which would be roughly about 7,900. Roughly is where that trend line is. Which is also roughly the 1.382 fib. So be interested to see if that is the one that holds up. Just because, again, those lines do tend to act as support and they tend to act as resistance as we have the moves coming through. You can see a little bit clearer on a 1 hour. This one pretty big, but we did see our 4th wave rejection right here, and up again for the 5th, solid rejection right there on that trend line, coming back down, finding support roughly in that same area. So we're watching for this to potentially come back down. If we see it come back down around 7,900 right here is kind of that pivot point, I think. Depending on how long this plays out, might be a little bit further. Remember, 76 was the next one, which is right here, which is also kind of roughly where we're kind of sitting at this whole resistance. It also looks like it's the zero point 0.5. What fib level is that? It's a 618 fib level on this particular chart. So might see a little bit of a reaction here, 7,900 on the Gann chart. So again, that's what I'm looking for. Just my overall thoughts on the market. Again, not financial advice, but just wanted to share my price analysis and ultimately where I believe Bitcoin can take us here in the near future. Remember, there is always a bull count. There's always a bear count for what we want to pay attention to. See what can potentially play out for us on the table, and really we'll go from there. So I hope to see you guys in the Discord again. Always, if you like my content, if you like my technical analysis, make sure you guys smash the likes, hit the little subscribe button, share the videos. Appreciate all the support that you have been giving me so far, and I'll catch you on the next video.